Elena Vasquez stood at the window of her small ship, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. The station was enormous, bigger than any city on Earth. It looked like a giant metal flower floating in space with 12 arms stretching out from the center. Each arm was the size of a moon. This was the Galactic Council headquarters. For 3 years, humanity had been asking to join. For 3 years, they had been told to wait. Now, finally, Elena had received the message she had been hoping for. But something about the message felt wrong. The words were polite, but underneath them was something cold. The Council wanted to hear humanity's case for relevance, not their application for membership. Their case for why they mattered at all. Elena touched the communication device on her wrist. A small hologram appeared, showing her assistant back on Earth. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked. His face looked worried. The other species that tried to join, most of them were rejected, and they had technology we can only dream of. Elena nodded. "I know, but we have to try. Earth needs allies. We're still so small compared to the rest of the galaxy." "Just remember what we talked about," Marcus said. "Don't promise them anything we can't deliver. And Elena, be careful. These beings have been ruling the galaxy for thousands of years. They don't think like us." The hologram faded. Elena looked back at the space station. Ships from a dozen different species moved around it like insects around a bright light. Some ships were long and thin like needles. Others were round like bubbles. A few looked like they were made of pure crystal. Elena's ship was small and simple compared to them. It was painted white with a blue stripe down the side. The Earth flag was visible on the hull, but it looked tiny next to the huge symbols of other civilizations. A voice came through the ship's speakers. It didn't sound human. The words were clear, but there was something strange about the tone. "Human vessel, you are cleared to dock at Port 7. Follow the guidance lights. Do not deviate from the path." Elena's pilot, Captain Chen, looked back at her. "Port 7 is in the smallest section," he said quietly. "The important visitors use ports 1 through 3. Elena just nodded. She had expected this. The docking process took an hour. When Elena finally stepped off her ship, she was met by a tall, thin being with 4 arms and skin that looked like metal. It spoke without moving what might have been its mouth. "I am Guide Keltar. I will escort you to the council chamber. Follow me and do not touch anything." As they walked through the corridors, Elena tried not to stare at the other beings they passed. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others floated in the air without any visible means of support. One group looked like walking trees with eyes. All of them stared at Elena. She heard whispers in languages she didn't understand, but she caught some words that had been translated into English by her device. Primitive. Barely space-capable. Why are they even here? Elena kept her face calm, but inside she felt a cold anger growing. These beings judged humanity without knowing anything about them. The corridors were enormous. The ceiling was so high Elena couldn't see it clearly. Strange lights floated in the air, providing a soft glow that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The walls were covered in symbols from dozens of different writing systems. "Your species is young," Guide Keltar said without looking back. "How many worlds do you control?" "We have colonies on 12 worlds," Elena replied. Keltar made a sound that might have been laughter. "The youngest member of the council controls over 10,000 worlds." They passed through several security checkpoints. Each one scanned Elena with lights and energy fields that made her skin tingle. Guards from different species watched her with what looked like boredom. To them, she was just another hopeful applicant from a minor species. Finally, they reached the council chamber. Elena had seen pictures, but the real thing took her breath away. The chamber was a perfect sphere, maybe a kilometer across. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that showed stars and galaxies floating inside it. It was like standing inside the universe itself. In the center of the chamber was a small platform where Elena was supposed to stand. Above her, arranged in a circle, were 12 massive chairs. Each chair was designed for a different type of being. Some were filled with water. Others glowed with energy. One seemed to be made of solid shadow. As Elena walked to the platform, the chairs began to fill with the council members. They appeared in flashes of light or materialized out of thin air, or simply walked through walls. Elena had studied each of them, but seeing them in person was different. They were huge, not just in size but in presence. Each one felt like a force of nature. Chancellor Vexhai of the Dominion was the first to speak. He looked like a giant insect made of gold and silver metal. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Human, your species seeks to join our ranks. For 3 years you have petitioned us. Today you will present your case." Elena stood straight and looked up at the 12 beings surrounding her. "Honored council members, I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, representing the people of Earth and our 12 colony worlds." 12 worlds, repeated Councillor Threx, who looked like a living crystal formation. "In how many years of space travel?" "We achieved faster-than-light travel 87 years ago," Elena said. Several council members made sounds that might have been amusement. Councillor Morth, who appeared to be made of flowing liquid metal, spoke next. 87 years and only 12 worlds. My species colonized 100 worlds in our first decade of space travel." Elena felt the familiar anger again, but she pushed it down. "Council members, humanity may be young and small, but we have qualities that could benefit the galactic community." "Such as?" Chancellor Vexhi's voice carried clear skepticism. Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment she had prepared for. "We are adaptable. Humans can live on worlds that other species find impossible. We are creative problem solvers. We never give up when faced with challenges, and we believe in cooperation between different peoples." The chamber was quiet for a moment. Then Councillor Yathara, who looked like a floating cloud of gas with eyes, spoke. "Adaptable, child. The Zelothian Empire has settled worlds with temperatures ranging from absolute zero to the heart of a star. Creative? The Corelli Confederation has technologies that reshape reality itself. Cooperation? Every species here has formed alliances spanning thousands of systems." Elena felt her prepared speech crumbling, but she continued. "Yes, but humans bring a unique perspective. We've overcome incredible challenges on our homeworld. We've united different cultures and peoples. Your homeworld," Chancellor Vexhi said slowly, "is a single planet with a few billion inhabitants. Councillor Gentai's hive mind includes trillions of beings across thousands of worlds, all thinking as one. What exactly do you believe makes your unity special?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Elena looked around at the 12 beings staring down at her. Each one represented a civilization that was thousands of years old, with technology and power beyond human imagination. But Elena had not come this far to give up now. "We contribute ourselves," she said firmly. The chamber fell silent. Then slowly the silence was broken by the sound Elena had been dreading. Laughter. The laughter started with Councillor Threx. It was a sound like crystal bells breaking, sharp and cutting. Then Councillor Morth joined in, a sound like metal grinding against metal. Soon half the council was laughing at Elena's words. Elena stood perfectly still on the platform, her hands at her sides. Her face showed no emotion, but inside the cold anger was growing stronger. Chancellor Vexhi raised one of his golden arms, and the laughter slowly stopped. "Forgive us, human, but you contribute yourselves is perhaps the most innocent thing we have heard in many cycles. Please continue with your presentation," said Councillor Yathara, the gas cloud being. "We are curious to hear more about these contributions." Elena opened the small device in her hand. A hologram appeared above the platform, showing images from Earth. "Humanity has achieved remarkable things in a short time. We have eliminated many diseases that once killed millions. We have created art and music that moves the soul. We have built cities that house millions of people in harmony." Councillor Threx leaned forward. "Your medicine extends life by what, a few decades? We have conquered death itself. Our eldest members have lived for over 50,000 years." The hologram changed to show human space exploration. "We have reached out to the stars with determination and courage. Every world we have settled was claimed through human effort and sacrifice." Councillor Morth's liquid metal form shifted into what might have been amusement. "Your exploration has reached a dozen worlds in nearly a century. The youngest species on this council governs 10,000 systems. Some of us remember when your star was still forming." Elena changed the hologram again, showing human cities and artwork. "We have created beauty and culture. We have learned to live together despite our differences." "Child," said Councillor Zendai, who looked like a massive tree made of light. "The artistic collective has been creating beauty since before your species evolved. They shape entire stars into sculptures. They paint with the colors of supernovas." The hologram showed human technology, ships, computers, medical devices. Elena tried to keep her voice steady. "We have developed advanced technology in a short time. Our computers can process enormous amounts of information. Our ships can cross vast distances. Counselor Vexhai made a dismissive gesture. Your computers are based on principles the Corelli Confederation discovered 20,000 years ago. Your ships use technology we discarded as primitive long before your civilization began. Elena felt each criticism like a physical blow, but she continued. The hologram showed images of human diplomacy, of different nations working together. We have learned to solve conflicts through talking instead of fighting. We have created peace between different groups. The peaceful assembly has maintained galactic peace for 15,000 years, said Counselor Lithara, whose form seemed to shift between different shapes. They have prevented wars between species you cannot even imagine. Your diplomacy covers one small world. Elena's presentation continued for another hour. Every achievement she mentioned was dismissed as primitive or irrelevant. Every example of human progress was compared to something far greater that the council species had done long ago. When she spoke of human courage, they told her of species that faced down cosmic horrors. When she mentioned human innovation, they described technologies that could remake matter itself. When she talked about human compassion, they pointed to civilizations that had eliminated suffering from entire galaxies. Finally, Elena reached the end of her prepared material. The hologram faded, leaving her standing alone on the platform. "Is that all?" asked Chancellor Vexhai. Elena nodded. "That is what humanity offers to the galaxy." The council members looked at each other. Some communicated through flashing lights. Others seemed to speak through means Elena couldn't detect. After a few minutes, Chancellor Vexhai spoke again. "Human, we appreciate your enthusiasm. But you must understand our position. Every species that joins this council must bring something unique, something valuable to the galactic community." Counselor Threx added, "Your medicine is thousands of years behind ours. Your technology is primitive. Your empire is tiny. Your achievements, while admirable for such a young species, are not significant on a galactic scale. What we want to know," said Counselor Morth, "is what exactly you believe you can contribute that we do not already have in far greater measure." Elena looked around at the 12 beings surrounding her. Each one represented power and knowledge beyond human understanding. Each one had lived longer than human civilization had existed. Each one controlled more worlds than humanity had even discovered. "We contribute ourselves," she said again. The silence that followed was heavy and uncomfortable. Then Counselor Yathara spoke, and her voice carried clear amusement. "And what precisely does that mean?" Elena tried to find words to explain what she felt in her heart. "We bring a new perspective. We see problems differently because we are different. We find solutions that others might miss because we approach things in our own way." "Child," said Counselor Zendai gently, "every species believes they are unique. Every civilization thinks their perspective is special, but uniqueness does not equal value. We bring passion," Elena said, her voice stronger now. "We care deeply about everything we do. We never accept that something cannot be done." Counselor Lithara shifted into a form that might have been skeptical. "The warrior clans have passion that burns like stars. The Explorer Guild has determination that has carried them to the edge of the universe. What makes human passion special?" Elena felt the presentation slipping away from her. Nothing she said seemed to matter to these beings. They had heard it all before from species far more advanced than humanity. "We bring hope," she said quietly. This time the silence was longer. Elena thought she might have finally said something that made them think. Then Chancellor Vexhai spoke, and his voice was almost kind. "Human hope is admirable, but hope does not power starships. Hope does not cure plagues that span solar systems. Hope does not defend against the darkness between galaxies." Counselor Threx leaned forward. "What you describe, perspective, passion, hope, these are qualities that every young species possesses. They are not contributions to the galactic community. They are simply youth. And youth," added Counselor Morth, "is something that passes with time." Elena felt something break inside her chest. These beings weren't just rejecting humanity's application. They were rejecting everything that made humans human. To them, all the qualities Elena treasured about her species were just signs of immaturity. "So what are you saying?" Elena asked. Chancellor Vexhai's voice was formal, now official. "We are saying that humanity is not ready for membership in the Galactic Council. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when your species has matured and developed truly advanced capabilities, you may apply again. A few thousand years, Elena repeated. It may seem like a long time to you, said Counselor Yathara, but it is nothing on the galactic scale. Use this time to grow, learn, develop. When you have something real to offer, return to us. Elena stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by beings who saw her entire species as children playing with toys. The anger that had been growing inside her finally reached its peak, but instead of exploding, it crystallized into something cold and hard. I understand, Elena said quietly, and for the first time since she had entered the chamber, she truly did. The laughter came again, but this time it was different. It wasn't the sharp, mocking sound from before. This was worse. It was the kind of laughter that adults make when a small child says something they think is cute but foolish. Elena stood perfectly still as the sound echoed through the vast chamber. She watched each council member with calm, steady eyes. Her face showed no anger, no hurt, no disappointment. She simply observed them, as if she was studying something interesting but distant. Chancellor Vexhai wiped what might have been tears from his compound eyes. His golden form shook with amusement. Contribution of yourselves, he repeated, his voice still carrying traces of laughter. How wonderfully naive. How perfectly innocent. Counselor Morth's liquid metal body rippled with what looked like continued amusement. It reminds me of the Zolothians when they first achieved spaceflight. They thought their ability to change color made them indispensable to galactic civilization, or the Corelli when they discovered hive mind technology, added Counselor Threx. They believed their collective consciousness was the answer to every problem in the galaxy. The council members began sharing similar stories, talking about other young species who had come before them, with grand ideas about their own importance. Elena listened to each story, her expression never changing. The pattern is always the same, said Counselor Yathara, her gas cloud form shifting into patterns that might have indicated wisdom. Young species believe they are special, because they have not yet learned how common their achievements truly are. Counselor Zendai's tree-like form glowed brighter as he spoke. It is not their fault. When you have lived for only a few thousand years, everything seems new and important. They do not yet understand the scale of the galaxy. Elena turned slightly to look at each speaker, but she said nothing. The truth is, Chancellor Vexhai continued, that every quality this human described exists in far greater measure among species that have been part of this council for millennia. Adaptability, creativity, determination, hope, these are not rare gifts. They are common features of intelligent life. What makes a species worthy of council membership, said Counselor Lithara, is not potential, but achievement, not dreams but reality, not what they might become, but what they have already accomplished. The council continued their discussion for several more minutes. They talked about humanity as if Elena wasn't there, analyzing her species like scientists examining an interesting but simple organism. They spoke of human limitations with the casual certainty of beings who had seen it all before. Finally, the conversation began to wind down. Chancellor Vexhai turned his attention back to Elena, who had not moved or spoken during the entire exchange. Well then, human, he said, his voice taking on an official tone. The council has heard your presentation. We will deliberate and inform you of our decision within the standard cycle. You may return to your quarters and wait. Elena looked up at him for a moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone in the chamber. She smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It wasn't sad or angry either. It was the kind of smile someone gives when they suddenly understand something that had been confusing them. That won't be necessary, Elena said quietly. The council members looked at each other uncertainly. This was not how these meetings usually ended. Excuse me, said Chancellor Vexhai. Elena turned and began walking toward the exit. Her steps were calm and measured, neither hurried nor slow. She moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where they were going. Where do you think you're going? Called Counselor Threx, his crystal form flashing with what might have been indignation. We haven't dismissed you. Elena didn't turn around. She didn't even slow down. I'm leaving. The council hasn't reached a decision. Counselor Morth's voice rose, his metal form shifting rapidly between different shapes. Elena reached the great doors that led out of the chamber. For a moment she paused. The doors were enormous, designed to dwarf anyone who approached them. They were meant to make visitors feel small and insignificant. Elena looked up at them for a moment, then turned back to face the council. She didn't look small or insignificant. She looked like someone who had just solved a complicated puzzle. "Yes, you have," she said simply. "What do you mean?" demanded Chancellor Vexhai. "We told you we would deliberate." Elena's smile returned, but this time it was different. This time, there was something in it that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their massive chairs. "You reached your decision the moment I walked into this chamber," Elena said. "Probably before that. You decided before you ever saw me. Before you heard a single word I said. This wasn't a hearing. It was a show." The chamber fell silent. Elena could see that her words had hit their target. "You wanted to feel superior," she continued, her voice calm and clear. "You wanted to remind yourselves how advanced and important you are. You brought me here not to judge humanity's worthiness, but to confirm your own greatness. How dare you," began Councillor Yathara, but Elena cut her off. "I understand now," Elena said. "You don't want partners. You don't want diversity or new perspectives or different approaches to problems. You want subjects. You want species that will look up to you and admire you and make you feel powerful." The silence in the chamber was complete now. Even the floating lights seemed to dim. "But we're not going to do that," Elena said. "We're not going to spend the next 1,000 years begging for your approval or trying to prove we're worthy of your attention." She turned back to the doors. "Thank you for making this so clear." "Wait," called Chancellor Vexhai. "You cannot simply leave. There are protocols. Procedures." Elena placed her hand on the door control. The massive doors began to open with a deep, resonant sound. "Human," shouted Councillor Threx. "You are making a mistake. You need the council. Without our protection, without our guidance, your species will never advance beyond this primitive level." Elena stepped through the doorway. She paused for just a moment and spoke without turning around. "Maybe. Or maybe you need us more than you think." The doors began to close behind her. Chancellor Vexhai called out once more, his voice carrying a note of something that might have been panic. "What does that mean? Human, what does that mean?" But Elena was already gone. The great doors sealed shut with a boom that echoed through the chamber for a long time. The 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in their massive chairs, staring at the closed doors. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council didn't know what to do next. In the corridor outside, Elena walked steadily toward her ship. Guide Keltar was waiting for her, his forearms gesturing in what might have been confusion. "The meeting ended very quickly," he said. "Did the council reach a decision already?" Elena looked at him for a moment. "Yes," she said. "They did." She continued walking, leaving the tall metallic being behind. As she moved through the corridors of the space station, Elena noticed that the other aliens were staring at her again. But this time their expressions were different. They looked confused, uncertain. Word was already spreading that the human had left the council chamber early. That had never happened before. Elena didn't care about their stares anymore. She had a ship to catch and a message to send home. Humanity had its answer. 6 months passed. The Galactic Council had expected many things after Elena's dramatic departure. They had expected desperate messages from Earth begging for another chance. They had expected human diplomats showing up at the space station with new offers and improved presentations. They had expected humanity to try harder, the way all rejected species did. They had not expected complete silence. At first, Chancellor Vexhai wasn't concerned. "They're probably regrouping," he told the other council members during their weekly meeting. "Young species often need time to process rejection. They'll be back within a few months with a more realistic proposal." But the months passed and no messages came from human space. No requests for meetings. No diplomatic communications at all. "Perhaps they're sulking," suggested Councillor Threx, his crystal form flickering with amusement. "Some species take these things very personally." Councillor Morth's liquid metal body formed what might have been a shrug. "Or they've accepted reality. Maybe they finally understand they're not ready for galactic civilization." But other species were beginning to notice the silence, and some of them were not happy about it. The first complaint came from the Corelli Confederation. Ambassador Velshan arrived at the council chambers looking agitated, which was unusual for his normally calm species. "Honored Council," he said, his multiple tentacles writhing with anxiety. We need to discuss the human situation." "What human situation?" asked Chancellor Vexhai. "The matter was resolved months ago." "That's exactly the problem," Velshan replied. "We had a joint research project with the humans. Medical technology development. They were providing test data from their colony worlds. The project was showing excellent progress." He paused, his tentacles coiling tighter. 3 weeks ago, they canceled everything. No explanation. No discussion. They just sent a brief message saying they were withdrawing from all cooperative ventures. Counselor Yathara's gas cloud form shifted into patterns of confusion. Surely they can be persuaded to continue. Their data cannot be that important. "You don't understand," Velshan said urgently. "Their biological diversity is unique. Humans can adapt to environmental conditions that would kill most species. The medical insights we were gaining could benefit the entire galaxy." Chancellor Vexhai made a dismissive gesture. "They'll return when they realize how much they need our cooperation. This is simply a temporary tantrum." But Velshan wasn't the only one with complaints. Over the following weeks, more species came forward with similar stories. The Zolothian Empire reported that human traders had abandoned profitable routes without explanation. The Scientific Collective said that human researchers had withdrawn from collaborative projects in the middle of important discoveries. "It's not just that they're leaving," explained Dr. Gentai, of the Scientific Collective, her crystalline body pulsing with frustrated energy. "It's how they're leaving. No advance warning. No discussion of terms. No gradual withdrawal. They just stop." The Artisan Guild was particularly upset. "We were working with human musicians and artists," said Master Velthar, his tree-like form drooping with disappointment. "Their creative approaches were so unusual. They saw patterns we had never considered. Now they've canceled every cultural exchange." Chancellor Vexhai tried to maintain his confident stance. "Species come and go from the galactic community all the time. The humans will realize their mistake soon enough." But privately, he was beginning to feel uneasy. The unease turned to concern when reports began coming in from the border regions. The Drexen hegemony controlled space near human territory, and they were known for keeping detailed records of everything that happened in their region. Warlord Kreshitar brought disturbing news to the council. His massive armored form radiated the kind of authority that came from commanding fleets across dozens of star systems. "The humans are doing something strange," he announced without preamble. "All their research stations in our space have gone dark." "Gone dark?" asked Counselor Lithara, her shape-shifting form cycling through expressions of confusion. "Not destroyed," Kreshitar clarified. "Abandoned, but not in the way you'd expect from an evacuation or retreat. They removed everything. Every piece of equipment, every computer, every scrap of data. When our scouts investigated, they found empty facilities that had been completely stripped." He projected a hologram showing one of the abandoned stations. It was clean, almost pristine, but completely empty. Not just of people, but of anything that might indicate what the humans had been doing there. "How is that possible?" asked Counselor Zendai. "Those were major research facilities. Some of them had been operating for decades." "That's what we want to know," Kreshitar replied grimly. "Our estimates suggest it would take months to properly evacuate facilities that size. But our surveillance shows they were operating normally 1 week and completely empty the next." Chancellor Vexhai felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. "Have you tried contacting them?" "Of course. All communication attempts are ignored. It's as if the humans have simply stopped existing in our region of space." More reports began flowing in. Human colonies that had been thriving suddenly went silent. Human merchants who had traded with other species for decades simply stopped showing up. Human diplomats recalled from their posts without explanation. What made it more disturbing was the methodical nature of the withdrawal. This wasn't panic or fear. It was organized, deliberate, and complete. Dr. Thelvan of the Monitoring Service brought the most unsettling report of all. His species specialized in tracking movement and communication across the galaxy. "We've lost track of approximately 60% of human vessels," he reported, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the data displays around him. "Their communication patterns have changed completely. They're using frequencies and encryption methods we've never seen before." "That's impossible," said Counselor Threx. "Human technology is primitive. They couldn't develop new communication systems that quickly." "Nevertheless," Dr. Thelvan replied, "that's what appears to have happened. Either they've made incredible advances in the past few months or what? Demanded Chancellor Vexhai. Or they've been hiding their true capabilities all along. The council chamber fell silent. The idea that humanity might have been deliberately concealing their technology was almost unthinkable. Young species always showed off their achievements, desperate to impress the older civilizations. But the evidence was becoming hard to ignore. Species across the galaxy were reporting the same thing. Humans had withdrawn completely from galactic society, and they had done so with an efficiency that suggested careful planning and advanced capabilities. The final alarming report came from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Captain Rex High of the Border Patrol brought news that made even the oldest council members uncomfortable. "We've detected massive energy signatures from the galactic rim," he reported. "The readings are off the charts. Something big is happening in the areas where humans have been relocating." "What kind of energy signatures?" asked Counselor Morth. "That's the problem. We don't recognize them. The patterns don't match any known technology. But the power levels—" He paused, checking his data again. "The power levels suggest construction on a scale we've never seen before." Chancellor Vexhai looked around at his fellow council members. For the first time in thousands of years, he saw uncertainty in their ancient faces. "What are they building?" asked Counselor Yathara. Captain Rexhai's answer was simple and terrifying. "We don't know." The meeting ended in uncomfortable silence. The 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in their massive chairs, each one thinking the same thought. Maybe they had made a mistake, but none of them were willing to say it out loud. Not yet. 18 months after Elena Vasquez had walked out of the council chamber, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had expected. The first sign that something was seriously wrong came from the outer territories. For centuries, hostile species had plagued the galaxy's edges. Pirates, raiders, and worse things that most civilized species preferred not to think about. The Council had always treated these threats as manageable nuisances, sending patrol fleets when necessary, but never solving the problem completely. Then, suddenly, the attacks stopped, not decreased. Stopped entirely. Captain Zeldar of the Perimeter Defense Force was the first to report the strange silence. His patrol had been hunting a notorious pirate fleet that had been terrorizing merchant ships for over 50 years. They were here 1 week. He told the emergency council session, his reptilian features showing confusion. Our scouts had them cornered in the Vega sector. The next week we found their ships drifting empty in space. No signs of battle. No energy weapon residue. No hull damage, just empty. "What happened to the crews?" asked Chancellor Vexhai. "Gone, but not dead. The ships were clean, like they had been carefully evacuated. But evacuated by whom and why? These were the Crimson Raiders. They didn't surrender to anyone. Similar reports came from across the Outer Rim. The Void Hunters, a species so dangerous that even the Council's greatest military minds had never found a way to stop them, simply vanished from all sensor networks. The Shadow Fleet, pirates who had been raiding for over 2,000 years, abandoned their strongholds overnight. Counselor Morth's liquid metal form shifted nervously. Perhaps they're consolidating somewhere else, preparing for a larger attack. But Dr. Thelvan of the Monitoring Service had disturbing news. "We've analyzed the patterns of disappearance. They all point to the same region of space, the area where we detected those massive energy signatures, the area where the humans have been relocating." The silence in the council chamber was heavy with implications that no one wanted to speak aloud. The second revelation came when the Corelli, Confederation's deep space probe, finally reached the coordinates where human activity had been detected. What they found challenged everything the Council thought they knew about human capabilities. Ambassador Velshan's tentacles trembled as he delivered the report. "The probe detected a structure," he said, his voice barely steady. "A structure in the void between galaxies." He activated a hologram in the center of the chamber. The image that appeared made several council members recoil. It was massive beyond comprehension. Not just a space station, but something that looked like it could house billions of beings. The design was clearly human, but it incorporated technologies that shouldn't have existed. Parts of it seemed to fold space around itself. Other sections appeared to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "That's impossible," whispered Counselor Threx. "Human technology is thousands of years behind ours. They couldn't build something like this." "The probe's analysis suggests otherwise," Velshan replied. The power output readings are beyond our measurement capabilities. The construction techniques—" He paused, his tentacles coiling with anxiety. "The construction techniques appear to be based on principles we've never discovered." Chancellor Vexhai stared at the hologram for a long moment. "How long would it take to build something like this?" "Using known technology? Centuries, maybe millennia. But this appears to have been constructed in less than 2 years." The third shock came from an unexpected source. The scientific collective had been analyzing the abandoned human research stations, trying to understand what the humans had been working on. Dr. Gentai brought their findings to the council, and her crystalline body was pulsing with excitement and fear. "We found trace data fragments," she reported. "Most of the human computers were wiped clean, but our analysis recovered some partial files. The work they were doing—" She paused, struggling to find words. "They weren't learning from us. They were studying us." "Studying us how?" asked Counselor Yathara. "Every species they interacted with, every technology exchange, every cultural program. They were analyzing our capabilities, our methods, our weaknesses. They've been building comprehensive profiles of every major civilization in the galaxy." Counselor Zendai's tree-like form flickered with alarm. "You're suggesting they were spying?" "Not spying, learning. The depth of analysis is incredible. They understood our technologies better than we thought possible. In some cases, better than we understand them ourselves." Dr. Gentai activated another hologram, showing complex data models. "Based on the fragments we recovered, they've been using our own knowledge against us, taking principles from a dozen different civilizations and combining them in ways none of us considered. That's why their new technologies seem impossible," she continued. "They're not purely human innovations. They're hybrid technologies that merge the best aspects of everything they learned from us." The fourth revelation was the most disturbing of all. A lone merchant ship, the Wandering Star, had been on a routine trading mission to the Outer Rim when it encountered something extraordinary. Captain Velnus brought his ship directly to the council station, ignoring all normal procedures. "I need to speak to the council immediately," he transmitted before his ship had even docked. "I've seen them. I've seen the humans." The emergency session was convened within hours. Captain Velnus stood before the council, his normally calm demeanor completely shattered. "I was in the Kepler sector," he began, his voice shaking. "We detected a ship in distress. Standard merchant protocol is to assist, so we approached." He activated his ship's recording system, and a hologram appeared showing a massive vessel unlike anything in the council's databases. It was clearly human in origin, but the design incorporated elements that seemed almost organic. They were engaging a destroyer-class Void Hunter ship. Captain Velnus continued. "Void Hunters are supposed to be unstoppable. We've all heard the stories. But this human ship," the recording showed the brief battle. The human vessel moved in ways that defied physics, folding space around itself to avoid the Void Hunter's weapons. When it fired back, the energy beams tore through the enemy ship's legendary defenses like they were made of paper. "The battle lasted less than 30 seconds, Captain Velnus said quietly. "When it was over, the human ship approached us. They wanted to talk." "What did they say?" asked Chancellor Vexhai. "Their captain was human, but she spoke perfect galactic standard. She thanked us for our willingness to help, even though we hadn't actually done anything. Then she said something I'll never forget." Captain Velnus looked directly at Chancellor Vexhai. She said, "Please tell the council that humanity remembers their kindness." "We remember everything." The chamber fell silent. "Then what happened?" asked Counselor Morth. "They left. But before they did, their captain gave me this message." Captain Velnus activated a recording device. Elena Vasquez's voice filled the chamber calm and clear. "Honorable council members, this is Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the Human Commonwealth. I hope you've had time to consider our previous conversation. You told us we had nothing to contribute to galactic civilization. You were right." The recording paused for a moment, then continued. "We had nothing to contribute to your civilization, but we were never trying to join your civilization. We were trying to build something better." Another pause. "You asked what we could offer that you don't already have. The answer is simple. We offer ourselves. Not to serve you, not to impress you, not to gain your approval. We offer ourselves to anyone who wants to be part of something new. Something that values potential over achievement, diversity over conformity, hope over cynicism." Elena's voice took on a warmer tone. "To the species who worked with us, who treated us as equals rather than subjects, who saw our worth before we proved it. Our invitation stands. The galaxy is vast enough for many different approaches to civilization. The final pause was longer. To the Council, we thank you for your honesty. You showed us exactly what we didn't want to become. In your rejection, you gave us the greatest gift possible, the freedom to be ourselves. The recording ended. The council chamber was silent for a long time. Finally, Chancellor Vexhai spoke, his voice barely a whisper. What have we done? Councillor Ythara's gas cloud form had collapsed into a tight, dense sphere. We thought we were judging them, but they were judging us. And we failed, added Councillor Threx, his crystal body flickering dimly. The truth was becoming clear. Humanity hadn't been rejected by the galactic community. They had rejected the galactic community. And in doing so, they had become something the Council had never imagined possible. They had become free. The massive hologram in the center of the chamber still showed the impossible human structure floating in the void between galaxies. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely beyond the Council's understanding. It was also, they were beginning to realize just the beginning. Elena had been right about one thing. They had contributed themselves, and now the galaxy would never be the same.